I felt like when I met you, I was like, we've met before. There was something about you telling your stories, we were going around. I was like, I felt like I had met you. My soul had met you. And I'm like, yes, what we do, you are a part of history. People are getting a part of your history and learning something about themselves and seeing the world differently and moving through the world differently.
You're listening to Your Porch or Mine, where everyone's welcome to pull up a chair, share their story, and hopefully leave laughing at life's beautiful mistakes. I'm Diana Suarez Mucci, your host and your friend who's ready to listen, right here on Your Porch or Mine. Hi, Bianca.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm like all giddy and excited.
I am so excited.
And you look so pretty.
Thank you. We're doing well. Chewy says hi.
Hi, Chewy. We love you. So your hair looks good. You know,
Thank you. So does
yours.
yours.
You look good. I know
Big
we
hair,
were
don't care.
That's true. That's true. Well, I'm so excited to have you on Your Porch or Mine. Thank you for taking the time. I just am excited about our conversation. But before we kick it off, you know what we got to do, girl. Now. All right.
What are you drinking? Because I know I have some Sancerre over here.
Yeah, you have the best. I love Sancerre. All right, we're going to do a cheers toast to you, to
Cheers.
us, to our friendship, to storytelling. All right, so you have Sancerre, and I'm going to tell you.
I do, because you brought it to my house, and I was like, what's this? I was very much a Scotch, whiskey, bourbon girl before coming to Paris. And now I'm like getting into wine. So trying something new was really great.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad you love it. Where to begin? Let's begin where we started.
Lovely.
Which is not too long ago. I had the privilege of meeting you, Bianca, in Paris. I was so lucky because Emilia Williams, who is a good friend and also, a friend, playwright, award-winning. I literally...
Amazing human.
Worked with him. He's such a great guy. I love him, and he's just a wonderful human being. So he directed my workshop, my reading workshop, and so I've been collaborating with him. And so he has this playwriting workshop every year, and this year I was able to join, and happenstance that you're there.
Yeah, it was so, I mean, I met Emilio while I've been here doing research on a project that I've been wanting to write for literally over a decade. And he was like, hey, I have some playwrights coming from the States. Do you want to come hang out and like talk to them a little bit about like writing? And I'm like, sure, this will be fun. And what I loved was like, I met you and I was like, I feel like we've met before. And you were like, no. And I'm like, no, for real. I feel like soul to soul, I have met you before. And you were like, no. But
I know, but I mean, because you're from LA.
I'm from the Bay Area, actually, but I was living in LA.
You lived in LA, right?
Sorry.
Right.
There's a Cali thing where it's sort of like, NorCal, South, not quite the same. So I grew up in the Bay Area, but I've been living in LA for like over a decade. So it is what it is. But I'm a NorCal girl.
California is great. I just got back from there. But yeah, so it was great to meet you there, and we connected. I mean, kindred spirits, you know, we're both like, love playwriting and storytelling and just humanity. And I just saw that in you and was drawn to you right away and just loved your stories. And I'd love to hear, maybe you could share with us, you know, the why Paris and all the way from California. And I want to hear about the project you're working. You shared a little bit about it. And I feel like that what you're doing now just tells... It's kind of the through line for where you started and what you're drawn to. So, you know, but tell us your story. I want to hear all about it and how you got to Paris and what you're working on.
It's kind of amazing and very funny. So I'm working on a project that I've wanted to do, like I said, for well over a decade. I do a lot of research-based projects. And so I have this cycle of plays that are military plays, and I have a cycle of plays that are like civil rights plays. And they're all things that I find really, really fascinating. The story that I'm working on is actually something someone told me. It was a story that was passed down in his family about a grandfather who was in World War II and was getting married to a French woman, but racism got in the way. But it's like this really beautiful, tragic sort of love story, like interwar period, World War II love story. And so, yeah, I got this small grant to be able to come here for a few months, go hang out in archives, which I mean, hello, archives in Paris, cheese, wine, books, like you've literally said everything I need. So, things have slowed down a little bit in my other life because I also do film and TV. So I figured, why not? Why not go to Paris? So I've been here for a couple of months. My French is très mauvais, as my husband likes to say. He is fluent in French. I am not. I took Spanish. And so, yeah, we were here. I met Emilio. He's amazing. I think he's brilliant and lovely human being. And so when he asked me to come hang out with playwrights, I was like, yes, say less. So it was really excited to see other Americans speak some English and not my broken French and talk about plays. Like
Yeah.
what could be better?
Yeah. What drew you to that story in particular? Because what you're researching now, I think is so, it's painful, like to hear about it, like the story of this beautiful man. Actually, I want you to tell the story because if you can go just a little bit deeper, because I think it's these are lost stories that, and even another play that you wrote, right? The Battle Cry. I want to talk about Battle Cry, but it seems like you're research-based storyteller. You're drawn to maybe what people have forgotten or who people have forgotten or no one's ever heard of them. Or I love that. And that story that you're researching, how do you feel about, like, does it have to be told and why do you feel like you have to tell it?
So what I often say is there's a couple of things that really pull me into a story that I know I want to tell. First is wait, what? I have that reaction when somebody tells me a story, I learned something, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what happened? And I need to know more. That's the first clue that it's going to be a story that I ultimately want to tell because I'm so floored by it that I need to know more. So there's part of that story that was that. And then there's another piece of me that is very much about these fulcrum points in our lives because I think that's where we realize who we really are. In those places, you can go left or you can go right, or something good or something bad could happen. I always say my characters are either going through, about to go through, or just on some other side of some shit, right? Like, because that's something that is a through line. I mean, I know we say love is connective tissue for everybody who's human, but I think difficulty is also something that is very human. We've all been through something. We've been through a heartache. We've been through a hard time. And so I like to find those kinds of stories that might seem sad, but there's so much beauty in life, even if something tragic happens. And I think what we as people in modern age are not as equipped to do or told to do that I think in the past they were better at is learning how to move through these really, really difficult moments, right? Things can happen for us so quickly. We have things on our phone, we don't have to wait for things. And I think we shy away from the hard stuff sometimes because we have so much information coming at us. It's really hard to then be like, wait, I have to sit with this, just sit with this emotion. And so the story I heard, so I wrote this other play so I have this cycle of plays that are military plays. Let's just throw that out there. So like my father is a Navy vet. Most people in my family have been veterans, like back to Revolutionary War, like military. I am not. I love it. I love them. I'm not good at getting up at 5 a.m. So that was never going to be, or being yelled at. Like that was not going to be my life. But I have so many friends and family who are, and then I went to graduate school where they had a military education program. So some of my students, when I was teaching, were in the military, some of my cohorts, some of my professors. So I was really enveloped in this world. And so I had written one play. It was going to be one play about traumatic brain injury. And suddenly people were like, oh, you love this. Here are 15 more stories. Like people just kept throwing things at me and I had to finally say stop. But this one stopped me in my tracks. Like some of them were interesting, but this one stopped me in my tracks because we were out, we were drinking, and this lovely young man like leaned over to me and told me this super tragic but beautiful story about his grandfather who was in World War II, who was in the off, And he met this amazing French woman. They were going to get, they were engaged, they were having a relationship, and another soldier, a white soldier, was hitting on her, and he was protecting her. And so then that white soldier lied and said he was raping this woman. And so he was pulled up for trial for rape and then executed for it. And so the family only found out the story because the woman brought the baby back to the States, because the government said that he died some other way. And so the only reason he's alive is because the mother brought the baby and the story back to the States and made sure that like he got home. And so that baby grew up in America, had a kid, and then this kid was born. So I met a person who's literally like, who's telling me his family story, and it was so beautiful and tragic, but like I had never heard of this. Like I had never heard of, I mean, at the time, and this was like, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, some of the things that were happening. And then I learned about Emmett Till's father, who also was killed in a very similar way. And it was just, and that it happened multiple times. And it was something that like just captured my soul, right? Like it was something about this story where you're like, these men were in a foreign country fighting for foreign people, fighting for rights that they didn't even have at home. Like this is well before you get into the 50s. This is well before the civil rights movement. Like this is them fighting for democracy. And it's such a beautiful and powerful story, even if it's tragic. And then this idea of cross-cultural things, of two people who don't speak the same language, who find things that they can talk about and teach each other things. And so for me, the story is more about the love they have, and about one of my favorite movies was Up Close and Personal. Michelle
Yeah.
Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Oh, I
I
love that
know.
movie.
It's
And
been
I've
a
watched it
while.
so many
I
times.
love that movie.
And even though it's gonna like rip your heart out, it is
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Oh, I gotta watch that again.
I love it. So to me, I want to tell that kind of epic love story, even if it ends in a way that could be sad. He told me this story, and I've been able to find so much information. My hope is that I'll actually be able to find out more about this person's actual family lineage, and maybe there's some information I could bring back to the family that they don't even have. But it was one of those, wait, sorry, what happened, stories? Like, sorry, stop. Go back. I made him repeat it to me twice because it's that part of history. And so there's the beauty of that. But then I think there's also some things in that story that are very today, right? Like we're living in a time also of war, also of separation, also of people telling us who we're supposed to hate and not love. And it wasn't about that, right? Like it was so much of these two people being able to cross that divide. And so much of that is just coming together on human, real life things. For them, he was like, they loved music, right? Like his grandfather was a musician from New Orleans, which is where my family's from, which is also why this story really like hit me. It was sort of like this idea of like pre-Zydeco, because Zydeco was a little bit later, but like that music coming to France and like the history of France, New Orleans, but like they're so separate and distant, but like this man coming from this place that I know, like I have deep roots, coming to a place. So being in France was necessary in part because this is only a story you can also tell following in those same footsteps, right? There's something amazing about being like, yeah, my family's from New Orleans, but we were not allowed to speak French. Like we were not allowed to speak French. So I know some words and maybe a couple things in Creole, but like thinking about this man being here, being in war, learning French, you know what I mean? But like maybe being able to woo this woman and communicate with this woman doing music because, well, music. And so those are sort of the seedlings that sort of got me here. And I knew that it was a play that I wanted to do bilingual, like it's going to be half French, half English. I wanted music to be a part of it. And like, I felt like I needed to be here too. Like I wanted to hear modern French music, but I also wanted to go to Le Havre's, it's like Normandy. So it's not Paris, but it's so different than Paris. But also it's a different world. So I knew I needed to experience some of this to be able to really bring to life, besides what I feel like sometimes people will think is the top line thing, is that this tragic story is a part of history. Yes, but we're history, right? Like we're living history, because in 50 years, people are going to look back and be like, well, what were they thinking? What were they doing? Like, how was that happening? And so excavating this in a real way will make it feel modern, right? Like, it's not just this idea of this tragic love story. You like really want to get into the culture. You really want to get into these people. And I feel like if I can transport the audience into that space, we're all living it then, but we're also looking at our modern time and being like, oh, well, maybe I need to look at things differently. Like I have a friend who's this goddess of a Black woman who met her Ukrainian husband in Greece, right? Like while she was on vacation and he was on vacation, right? And they're back and they're married and they've got kid. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like the idea of like this transcultural, transatlantic, this is stuff that happens, right? Like this still happens today. And I think we think it's modern, and it's like, no, this has always been happening. But like, if we embrace it, we can kind of bridge those gaps. And I love that.
Right. I love that. I can see it. I can feel it. I can hear it. That story would be amazing. So I'm excited for you to get to it, man. Like I know
Yeah.
that you're doing all the research now, which is going to inform. And I love that, because the way that I write stories, my storytelling comes from more like, it's happened to me. It's my circle. It's like realism,
Which I love.
very based in realism. Yours historically, and you're
I feel like it's funny because my family is so large and so close, and I kind of feel like they're their own little mafia. And so I don't write about my actual family, because I do want to like go to Sunday dinner and see those people, and I'm not brave enough to like put those stories out there, even though they keep begging me to do it. They keep being like, write a story about us, and I'm like, you say that, but like I have literally put real lines that my mother has said in the mouth of characters, and she's like, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they did that. And I was like, yeah, you would not want to see yourself.
oh my God, that's hilarious. So you take some of your
So I kind of mesh between the two, even though it's not necessarily my family. I try. And so like in another life, I've worn a lot of hats and lived a lot of lives. I was an actor for the longest. Actually, I started as an actor. So for me, my beginning in storytelling was putting myself in the shoes of other people who are not me, and living in those shoes as if they were me, right? So that's not a foreign idea to me. So when I started moving from acting into playwriting, it actually wasn't odd. It was sort of like, I've done this. I've embodied other people. I've had to step into that role. I can't talk about my family crazy, but I can talk about other things as if it were me. And so what I try to say for myself is I write stories, even if they're not mine, as if they were mine, with the same sanctity, with the same respect, with the same rigor, with the same balance, with the same love, with the same joy, with the same fears, as if it were mine. And that's because I know what that's been like to embody and have to step into. So even when I'm writing my stories, even though they're researched, I'm looking for that connective thread, right? Like, so what I'm researching now isn't just facts, right? Like I'm looking at like, what's the food? What was the music? What was like the things that we would look at now if you were trying to understand somebody and get into their shoes. How do they dress? What were their families like? What was the gossip? Because there's a lot of lovely letters and news things where you were like, oh, there's some tea here, right? Like that's the stuff that like really transports us and makes the past feel like now. And I think that's to me what writing does, and what you do with your own stories. It's like you're bringing people into your heart, into your home, into your life, to allow them to see the world in a very different way, but to feel themselves, right? Like I feel more myself sometimes, even if it's a story that's not exactly mine, because there's pieces of that make sense to me, where it's like, I might not have grown up in New York or had the parentage, but you might tell a funny story between your parents arguing. And I was like, oh, girl, had that, been there, done that, and been like, how do I back up out of this room? Right. You know what I mean? Like they're so
Right.
human.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thread that I think storytelling in whatever medium that we're able to connect through storytelling. Like we see ourselves in someone else's story. I love that you're going to bring that to the stage. I'm excited for you and excited for us to see it. So
Yeah.
I also am. There's this other story that you wrote, which I'm fascinated by, and this was earlier in your writing career. The battle cry, and I don't know if anyone who's listening has heard of Claudette Colvin, right? I mean, I didn't before you and I talked. You said I wrote a story, a play called Battle Cry about Claudette Colvin, and I'm like, who? Wait, what?
Yeah.
There was
Again,
another.
it's the wait what
Wait,
moment.
wait, but you were like, she came before Rosa Parks, and that's when I was like, wait, what? There was somebody who came before Rosa Parks, and her story is similar. It's what happened.
Yes.
Um,
So
yeah,
the other
talk
thing
about
that like to the wait what that sometimes gets me is the unsung heroes. And particularly I feel like women's stories get lost the most. But Claudette Colvin is a story that touched my heart. And it's actually, I think it was my it was my second year play in grad school, but it was the first one that I got to really go to archives because I will tell you her story, but I will also feel like the genesis of her story also speaks very much to like why I write what I write. And I was having a conversation with my niece and a conversation with other young women who said they didn't see themselves in history, right? They weren't doing well in school or they just didn't understand history classes because they never saw themselves, right? It was about these old people, old white dudes. It was about dates and times. They didn't see themselves as history making. And that broke my heart because I'm a history buff. And so I started looking for pieces of history, right, where they could see themselves. And I came across the story of Claudette Colvin. And for me, it was also one of those record scratch moments because it was both inspiring and also so heart-wrenching. And she is a little known, unsung, or had been at the time when I was writing it, which was like 2011, 2012, 2013, who didn't give up her seat on the bus in Montgomery 9 months before Rosa Parks. And there were several women who, Black women in Montgomery, not somewhere else, who also went through the same situation, who actually ended up being the people who sued. Gale is like Browder v. Gale is the case, and it went all the way to Supreme Court. And it's actually what ended the Montgomery bus boycott. And people don't realize that. So her story is really fascinating. So it was the year after Brown versus the Board of Ed, right? This young 15-year-old girl who is completely idealistic and like empowered and like seeing how other children, right? Brown versus Ed is like kids going to school, feeling like they could change history. They could make things better. And so after, it was like after they had done their version of Black History Month, which it wasn't, I think it was like a week of like learning Black history and like learning about her rights and the Magna Carta and like all these different things. She was on a bus one day, not thinking about it. And they wanted her to give her a seat on the bus. And she said this line that was so powerful. She was like, she felt like Harriet Tubman was on one side and, you know what I mean, was on the other side. Like history was keeping her in her seat and she just couldn't get up. And it was so beautiful and powerful. And she was doing this thing very idealistically, and it upended her life. And so originally the NAACP took her case. She was supposed to be the Rosa Parks, right? They thought she was going to be the person to like, do this case, have this lawsuit, start this precedent. But she was young, she was dark skinned, she was from a poor family. And there were some people who were kind of like, is she the perfect victim? Right? Is she too young? Will people follow her? Will people think this is right? Well, there's the second guessing. And so she kind of lost everything. In part, also, she got pregnant, which was definitely, I mean, teen pregnancy is also difficult now, but then it was very much taboo. And so she did this amazing thing. And I think it just it got swept under the rug into a way that like no one had heard of it. And it was tragic in the sense that like this is history that was lost, but also so empowering because you're like, this is a piece of history that can get little girls to recognize we too have done things. We too, this is a story we need to know. And I think we think about history as dates and times and these pivotal moments, but we don't think about the connective tissue or all the little beats that happened before that watershed moment. And I often kind of liken it to what happened with George Floyd. Like how many people, how many lives were lost in just the couple of months before him, the week of him, right? And, you know, the incidents that happened, but he was the tipping point. But you can't forget the Sandra Blands. You can't forget the other people who came before. And to me, Claudette knew Rosa Parks. She became, like, after her incident, she became a part of the NAACP youth group, and Rosa Parks was her leader, right? Like she spent the night at her house. They knew each other. And so to me, what's really fascinating about that too is like how youth can inspire older people to also stand up. And I look at, you know, Claudette's story and Rosa's story, and I'm like, this is a continuum. This young girl was inspired by other people standing up and other kids for education. She did a thing. It didn't end the way that everybody thought it should, but she, I believe, is part of what inspired Rosa Parks that day to be like, you know what? In the 15-year, I mean, maybe that's not how Rosa said it, but I'm thinking she knew all the women. She had interviewed the women who hadn't given up their seats in those months and was like, you know what? Today ain't the day. I'm not going to do it either. And I love that. I love that that can inspire modern people to say, okay, maybe I won't be the watershed, but at some point we all have to say enough is enough. And my stand today is my stand today. And maybe it inspires somebody else to do the thing they need to do, because that's how history changes, one person at a time. And her story is beautiful and amazing. She sadly passed away earlier this year. She started getting her flowers in the last couple of years, which I love, but I feel like so many people don't know who she is now. But when I started researching her, no one knew. It was before her book even came out. I had heard the story and I was looking and trying to find things, and I ended up having to go to Alabama a few times and going through the archives. But it was amazing to me, these people who were PhDs, professors, heads of programs, who were literally like, if I don't know her name, she's not important, right? Like some 15-year-old girl is not important. And you're like, she is important. She's vitally important. And the fact that we've overlooked those kinds of stories, I think it's just unfair, but I think it also hurts us. Because if we're only seeing the people we're holding to these impossible standards and not just the normal people who also made change or even inspired those people, we think we're not worthy, right? We think we can't change anything. We can't do anything. And we live in a time now that like, that's not true. And it wasn't true then either. So I love her. I love her story. I was working on a thing with her family and estate before she passed. I was hoping it got made. It didn't. But I believe she's a story that people need to hear, young, old, and it inspired me. And I think it also inspired the young ladies I knew who didn't see themselves in history. And I'm like, this is a shame. This is an amazing story.
It is. And I love that we're going to revive that. Let's bring it out again. Like, I think, you know, like you've written a beautiful story about someone who has been forgotten or wasn't even known. And I do love how you are, I love the way that you're creating story by history. And as you said, right, shaping it to me, it's meaningful today. And to hear that young people like don't see themselves, I do think that it's in the way that we're teaching the history. I think the way that we're telling the stories of old are not in the way that the kids relate or students can relate. So how do we
just giving them dates, right? Like
Right.
we're giving them dates and things.
Yeah.
We're also giving very skewed forms of history, especially now. It's sort of like people getting to decide, okay, well, we're not going to say this happened. We're not telling them in a way that it makes sense for them today. I know when I was doing it, I was like, and I love history. So history was the way of me communicating with my dad. Like, it's kind of interesting where Yes, my father was in the military, but it was funny when we would watch movies, he would be using whatever movie we were talking about. He loved sci-fi, he loved historical things, but he would connect those dots, right? Like we could be watching Dune and he's talking about climate change, right? Like he's talking about oil, he's talking about resources, he's talking about metal. Like he was connecting the dots so that like what I was learning wasn't just these random facts, it was a story. And I think they lose the story part of it. And if you lose the connectivity to why this is important, not just dates, not just for a test, not just to get through, this is actually a lesson I can learn for myself of how not to make the same mistakes. Or maybe learning about Claudette is like, oh, I can change history, right? Like, or maybe this is how I would do something different than somebody else. And I think we don't talk about history like that. It's sort of like, that happened in the past, la 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 la
Yeah.
la.
Yeah.
And
I mean, history through
believe that.
storytelling. You're nailing
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's through the storytelling that I think that's connects people. That just makes it like makes it valid, makes it real that somebody actually lived and on this earth made an impact, and that through that story we can see ourselves. So I love that. I love that
The
so much.
humanness, I think it's important. We're all meeting you. So like, I'll go back to meeting you in France. Again, I felt like when I met you, I was like, we've met before. There was something about you telling your stories, we were going around. I was like, I felt like I had met you. My soul had met you. And you were talking about your play and like how you write and what you write. And I'm like, yes, what we do, you are a part of history. People are getting a part of your history and learning something about themselves and seeing the world differently and moving through the world differently. And we don't have to think about it as this disconnected thing. It's really a way to just see ourselves differently. I didn't have to go through that. Thank God. You know, there's some things that I'm writing about that I'm like, I am so glad I didn't have to. But it means that paved the way for me to have what I have. And that makes me have more empathy then for other people who are going through things that I don't have to go through. And I think that's the power of theater and the power of what we do. And I think that's what spoke to me about your story, like big hair. You were saying, you're talking about pieces of it that I'm like, I'm laughing. I know if I read it, I'd be crying. Like there's moments of all of that in real life. And I think bringing history to that same immediacy is the same thing, right? Whether it's my story or not, I think that gives people the stuff where you're like, oh, it's not just dates, it's not just random Magna Carta, it's not 1776, it's not Kelsey versus Ferguson. Like, you know what I mean? It's not these random cases, that there are these people, right? Real human beings behind all of these things. And I think, I don't know, I love it.
Yeah, I love it. And I know you're also, so you're an actor, you storyteller through playwriting, and as an actor, you're telling a story. You've leaned more into the playwriting, but you're also TV writer. Like, I think that's really interesting. And you've done that for many, many years in LA, right? I mean, tell me about the TV writing and how, what you wrote, or if you can share maybe what shows you were on, but how that is different from playwriting, or is it?
Oh, it's interesting because there's so many elements of my playwriting and even my research that have gone into my TV writing. Because when you're working on a show, you're working on somebody else's show, right? It's somebody else's baby, which is, I think, sometimes how the research portion of this has really helped me. It's like, because I'm stepping into other people's shoes, I have to do the same thing when I'm stepping into other people's shows, right? Like, this is their baby, this is their creation. I have to do the same amount of research. I have to understand their baby. I have to like dress it and nanny it and do all the things they want me to do. And I love it. So what's great about TV is there are elements of my playwriting that I can bring into it. And then I also get to do things that I would never get to do in playwriting, right? So as a fan of fantasy and sci-fi and superheroes and all the things, I got to do that stuff, right? And then I also have been on horror shows. So, and the funny thing that I think people don't always recognize, especially in film and TV, even in theater, is that sometimes we work on things, we write things that no one ever sees. So I've been on some shows that people have seen, and then I've worked on like full seasons of shows that never got made, and like it's in my heart and it's so amazing. And you're like, you never got to see the baby. Um, it's so cool. So, what's great is that like I'm reaching a bigger audience, right? Theater is the people who get to come to that show right then that night. They see a different show every night, but they're only reaching a certain space. Film and TV, like it's funny, I was working on a show that in America was on like, so I worked on this show called Titans, which superheroes, love them. But in America, it was on DC TV at the time, which was like a web thing, like precursor, not very many people like even subscribed, but it was on Netflix internationally. So I had friends from London, I had friends from Nigeria, I had friends from Australia being like, oh my God, I saw your show. Friends here hadn't seen my show, but like across the world, I wrote something that like other people on the other side of the planet had been watching and enjoying. And then when it moved to what is it now? I don't even know what it is now. It was HBO Max, and it was Max, and it was HBO. I don't know. It's,
Yeah,
whatever
all
it
the
is now, it
streaming,
was
who
on
knows? Yeah.
that streaming channel. And then 2 years later, my family was able to see it. It was like, it's this weird life to me where it's like we're working on it when we're working on it, and then it's separate. But like I've also written, like I wrote a pilot literally 14 years ago before Watchmen. I had written a script about Black Wall Street, which is another historical drama about, what happened to this community that was basically wiped out. But I wanted to tell the story before that. Everyone wants to talk about the story of how Black Wall Street was destroyed. And I thought it was more fascinating of how this community was built, how these, post-slavery, these people were able to create wealth for themselves, create a community for themselves, create love for themselves, and how we heal trauma, right? Like slavery was a type of trauma, right? Like generations of trauma. And it was this beautiful, there's several of them, but this particular one, it was like, and that's what fascinates me. So even when I'm telling history, and even if I'm telling dark or complicated stories, I don't like nihilism. I think life is hard enough. But if we can find a way to tilt toward the light, even if something sad is going to happen, there's that poem. What is it? Do you know? It's like something between the dash, I think it's called, or something, where it's literally not about the birth date and the death date. It's about what you do in the dash in between. That's really powerful. And that's what people remember. And that's what's important. And so that's another thing I think I tell in my stories is like, I'm really, even if something sad happened, I'm really hoping the audience recognizes we're all going to go through some shit. But what makes it important is the stuff on the other side of it. Who's with you? Who's got your back? Who's in the dirt with you? How are you moving through? How are you inspiring somebody that you don't even know you're inspiring, right? Who's watching you go through whatever you're going through and be inspired to like be better. So that's the kind of stuff I do. So even though I'm researching, I'm looking for that thing because that is something I think all of us can understand. And it helps me want to write. Like I can write about the sad part of Claudette because I can talk about the inspirational part. I can write about whatever because there's pieces of this that are so beautiful. So.
Right. I love that. And the TV part of it in your storytelling is that you can maybe go back to the archives or
Yes.
there's a resurgence or it can keep coming back. You can point to it. The
We
play,
can write movies, right? Like, so
yeah,
like,
film. I love film.
You can, I mean,
I love film
history
and
isn't just for, I mean, like, think about how many World War II movies, right? Like Dunkirk, like you can literally rattle them off. Glorious Bastards, some of them are like historical, some of them are not. Like, nothing I'm doing is wasted, I believe. It's just a different kind of storytelling, right? And so like I just worked on, it's funny, I have like 3 projects I worked on in different stages of Billie Holiday's life. So like I have a play, I have a movie, like I was doing this whole other thing. So I worked on like several iterations of Billie Holiday's life. And like there have been movies about her, there've been plays about her, there've been podcasts about her. Like it doesn't matter what format I think people work in. So like I always tell playwrights, there's a space for you in film and TV, right? And for film and TV people, there's a space for you in playwriting, but there's also a space for us in podcasts. There's a space for us in novels. There's a space for us in short stories and poetry. Like these things we're telling have different structures, right? So I might have to think about my story in a slightly different way, and I have to adapt it for the format that I'm working in. But that story is valid because that story is valid. The way you want to tell it is based on how you want to tell it, right? Like you can tell that same thing in different formats. So I don't look at my film and TV work as separate. It's just an adaptation, and it's a different hat and a way of, those, is it Benjamin Franklin who had those weird glasses that had all the different colors, right? So it was like a thing, and most people remember from that Nick Cage movie, The National Treasure, right? Where you like go up and it's blue and it's red and it's green. It's like, that's all to me it is, right? So if I'm looking through the blue, maybe I'm doing playwriting. I'm looking through the yellow, maybe it's film and TV. Like it can be a poem. So we just think about it that way.
I love it.
It's not that hard. It's not that,
No.
it's not that different.
Right. And I agree with you. So it's just a different medium, a different way, a different platform to tell stories and to make meaning out of our lives and our purpose and our reason for being here and helping us get to the dash, like not just I love that. I got to look for that poem. I know I can't believe, like, I don't know. I feel like we could keep talking as we did when we first.
We could go.
But I want to, I do want to, what I normally do is like a last sip, but I do want to talk about.
Are we really at the last sip already? Like we're sipping? Oh my God.
I know. My friend was like, you cannot be last sipping me.
So fast.
But I do want to talk a little bit about like how we inspire other people, whatever age, because, I'm a more, I'm going to, like, I don't want to age myself, but I am aged.
No, you're fine wine. You're fine wine.
I am a fine wine. So no
well
matter
preserved.
What age, thank you, my love. I appreciate that. No matter what age we are, right? If we want to get into like writing stories, telling stories, we don't have all the answers. And I want to share something that you and I talked about a little bit. There's a book that was written, and I heard about it through a conference, that it was like, and I should find it, about how to get invited to the party. Like as artists, I think so many of us in our careers have been like, oh my God, how do we get invited to the party? Please invite me to your party. And then my thing was like, you know what? I can't wait for you to invite me to your party. So I want to crash your party. I'm going to crash it. And then yesterday, you and I were talking about it, and I love what you said. I need you to say it again, because that was like, I'm like, hell yeah. All right. I need you to take me through it.
I'm a bit of a middle kid, so I'll just preface this with that, and we just do our own thing. Sometimes I'm like, fuck their party. Start your own party, right? Like, we live in a world where we're trying to crash other people's party and we're waiting for everybody to invite us into the table. But like, people might be bored at that party, right? Like, we're all trying to fight to get to this place because we need somebody else to validate us. But they might be looking for the next. They might be looking for the new. Or you can just have more fun and invite the people who already get you to your party. And they see how cool you are at your house. And they're like, hold up, what's happening over there? And then they come to your party. So I do believe that like it's not a one or the other, but oftentimes, like what helped me, because again, moving from acting to playwriting to TV writing, the thing that has been able to sustain me and keep me from falling into this like morass that it's easy to be like, everybody's doing the thing and you don't always need gatekeepers, right? Like there are people whose job it is to keep you out. And if you're wasting all of your energy trying to get past the people who are trying to keep you out, you're not spending your energy making the things that I believe we were born with stories that only we can tell, right? We are blessed with stories that only we can tell. Sure, maybe I'll lob a thing at this gatekeeper, but I'm also going to be over here making my own shit. I'm going to be making my own stuff. I'm going to be living the stories and telling the stories that I have been put on this earth to tell. And so I often tell people, mentors, classes I've taught, I'm like, stop waiting for people to tell you you're amazing. Stop just waiting for somebody to invite you to the party. Either A, crash the fucking party, B, build a chair and pull up to that table, or C, create your own fucking table, right? You don't have to wait. And now we're in a time where, like, when I was starting, there are so many things in technology that have come out in the last couple of years. Podcasts, right? We can make our own podcast. We are online right now. I've got my headphones. We're across the world. We are recording this thing and you can put it out, right? You can make your own movies on an iPhone, like on any phone, right? Like we can create the world we want in a way that is so much easier now than ever before, that I'm like, don't wait. Don't wait to be invited. Go have fun now. Because you may never be invited to that person's party, or you might get to the party and be like, y'all are lame. Y'all not my people. Y'all not my tribe. Like, why did I spend all this time trying to get to this party? And like, I don't even like you people. Like, I don't like y'all. So I am very much, it's like me coming to Paris was like, I could, things have slowed down a little bit in LA. And I was like, I could sit here and wonder what's happening, or I could apply for grants. And that's what I do. Another thing, in another life, I was a grant writer. And I was like, I'm gonna apply for a grant. I got one. And it was like, oh, I had a friend who had a place. And I was like, let me go stay there. Right. Like I am enjoying life for now, because tomorrow's not promised. I can't hit by it, but like anything can happen. But I can live my life today and tell the story and attempt to tell the story I really want to tell. Why not do it? Why not do it? And so I don't know. That's my sip of, like we all want to go to a party, and I am all for it. But don't wait. Don't wait to be invited. Crash it, whatever, build your own. But do what you're put here to do. And don't believe that I should be the arbitrator. Anybody should be the arbitrator of whether you're good or not, right? Like there are people who are like, oh, do you like my work? I might not be your audience. Don't let me stop you from doing what you're meant to do.
I love what you said. Make shit. Just make the story. Make the story. Make it happen. Make it like just write if you want to write. If you want to tell your story verbally, if you want to do the podcast. I literally just have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just doing it.
But you're doing something amazing.
I
like
what I'm doing.
I watched the episodes and they're fun. Like, okay, your daughter is gorgeous. Can I just say that really quickly? I was like, hello, beautiful jeans, gorgeousness. But they're inspiring and they're fun and they're so different. And it's like you had a thought. You were like, I'm just going to sit and talk to people that I know, and I don't know where this is going to go. You don't know where this is going to go, but it's gone here, right? Just this hour, no matter what happens, we've been talking, we've been networking, but also our souls have been mingling. And I said, I'm going to say it again. When I met you, I was like, I feel like we have met before. And now I'm like, we were meant to meet, whether we had met before or not. There was something in that moment that I was like, oh, there's a thing here. Right. And so it's continued, and hopefully we'll continue talking.
Yeah,
and like
we will.
Time.
Like we're kindred spirits. No, and I love and appreciate you, honestly, in such a short amount of time, like when something clicks, and you have a lot of the same sort of foundational beliefs that I do about our purpose here, the thing that we were meant to do here, finding that thing. I find that, leaving a legacy. And I just was saying that to another friend of mine on the podcast. We were just chit-chatting about her jewelry making, and that is like leaving a legacy. The stories that are behind even the piece that you're leaving to someone. And we don't need to leave the legacy. It's like, for my grandchildren,
living
the legacy that we leave, it's just sort of happening, right? We're planting the legacy as we speak to people, as we're sharing a story, sharing our hearts, making a new friend. These are the things to me that matter the most, and why we're here.
Yes, connection, and I love it. I mean, it's why we write, but it's such a fundamental human community. Like community is, right? People sat around the fire and they told stories as a way to connect. People create conversations, be it on the bus or be it in a restaurant. Like we need, as humans, to connect to each other. And that's why we're not all the same, right? Like we're not all built the same. We do not all look the same. We don't all have the same experiences, because I needed you to tell me your story for me to have that. And I need to be able to tell you my story for you to have that piece, because there's only so many hours in the day, right? Like, So we can continue making those connections. I just feel like we can get past the superficial things that people are currently trying to do and have historically tried to do to separate us. Because every time we look at a revolution, it's when people have said, oh, you said this is what makes us different. But in reality, I'm looking human to human, heart to heart, person to person. We've broken bread. That's what makes us human, not this other stuff, not how much money you make, not what clothes you're wearing. That's not what makes us people. That doesn't mean much. It's a great way of expressing ourselves, but you telling me your story of big hair and you telling me your story about that, relationship that like, you're like, I don't know how it should end. And they've gone through this stuff and it's back and forth. And I'm like, we've all had those relationships, right? We've all had that person you're like, oh my God, I love you, but you drive me crazy. Like, so it's so powerful and reassuring. And I love what you're writing. I love what you're doing. I cannot wait. I know your play is like going to be going up, and I might have to be flying back to the States to go see it. But it's so beautiful and touching. And when you talk about it, you light up in this way that like, you are living history. You are living legacy because you're sharing something with people that's going to make them see the world differently. And that's so nice to be like, you were a light in the world, and I'm glad I got to see you shine.
Oh, thank you. Ditto. Likewise to you, my dear. My darling. So we're going to stay in touch, and I want to do one more toast with me.
One more toast.
Enjoy that sunset.
Believe me, it's so good.
I'm gonna
get some chocolate. It's gonna be great.
Oh my God, I'm gonna go have some tonight. All right, big hugs to you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I loved our chat. I loved it. Thanks for hanging out on the porch with me. We're gonna do this again.
Thanks for inviting me to the porch. I feel seen and loved, so thank you.
All right, big hugs. Love.
Bye, love.
Bye. If today's conversation made you laugh, think, or just breathe a little easier, share it with someone you love. Catch the podcast wherever you listen and follow me on Instagram for more. Remember, the porch is always open and there's always a spot for you.